There's something nobody talks about when describing life after 50. Not the hot flashes, not the joint pain, not even the sleep. It's the feeling of walking into a room you've walked into hundreds of times before, and suddenly sensing, without being able to explain why, that something changed, that somehow you're less visible than you used to be, less registered. You finish a sentence and nobody responds. You make a suggestion at work and the conversation keeps moving as if you never spoke. You're in a group you've belonged to for years and quietly feel like a guest. And then comes the part nobody mentions, the pain. Not exactly sadness, not loneliness, not in the way we usually use that word. Something more physical, a pressure, a dull ache you can't quite locate but can absolutely feel. And here's what most people assume, that this feeling is emotional, a sign of insecurity maybe, or overthinking. That's not what the research says. What neuroscience has discovered over the past 2 decades changes everything about how we understand this experience. And it begins with a region of your brain that has absolutely no interest in the difference between being ignored and being hurt. Think about the last time someone canceled plans on you at the last minute, or walked right past you at a party without acknowledgement, or used your name one less time than they used to. You probably told yourself, "Don't be sensitive, it's not a big deal," but your brain, specifically the part responsible for processing physical pain, had already registered it, already activated, already sent the signal. And here's what matters. This activation is not a metaphor. It's a measurable neurological event. That's what we're going to understand today, not as a way to make you feel worse about something that's already difficult, but because the moment you understand what's actually happening, the shame dissolves. And what's left is something you can work with. Let me tell you about a woman named Susan, 54 years old, competent, social, self-aware, the kind of person who reads about psychology and believes she understands her own reactions. And then she retired. Within 6 months, she said something to her therapist that surprised even her when she heard herself say it out loud. "I feel like I don't exist anymore." The therapist nodded and said, "That's a very common response to transition." Susan nodded back. But something about that explanation felt incomplete, because what she was feeling wasn't exactly grief. It wasn't depression. It felt more like a physical absence, as if part of her nervous system had gone quiet. She wasn't imagining it. Here's what's true for many women in their 50s, and what most conversations about this stage of life get wrong. We talk about invisibility as a social experience, as something that happens between you and other people, a dynamic to manage, a perception to change. But the experience of social invisibility, of feeling unseen, unrecognized, overlooked, registers in the body the same way a bruised knee does. Your brain, with all its extraordinary complexity, still hasn't received the memo that being professionally dismissed at 53 is different from a physical threat at 23. It processes both through the same ancient alarm system. Efficient? Absolutely. Convenient? Not even close. And this is where things get interesting, and where the research stops feeling abstract and starts feeling personal. Why do some people seem to move through this stage with more ease? Why does the exact same experience land so differently depending on the person? The answer has less to do with personality than most people think. We'll get there. But first, the science. In 2003, researchers at UCLA published a study that became one of the most cited in social neuroscience. The experiment was simple. People played a virtual ball-tossing game with other players. At a certain point, the other players stopped throwing the ball to them. The participants were being socially excluded by a video game, and yet their brains lit up in a very specific region, the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, the same area activated during physical pain. Not a similar area, the same area. Maybe that's why certain silences feel so disproportionately painful. A comment ignored at the table, a group that keeps walking without realizing you stopped. The brain doesn't register that as abstraction. In later studies, researchers found something even stranger. Interventions traditionally used for physical pain also appeared to reduce part of the pain of social exclusion. The social pain decreased. In much the same way physical pain would. Think about what that means. The brain doesn't have one system for people didn't include me, and another for I burned my hand. It has one system, one alarm, and both experiences trigger it. This is not weakness, it's evolutionary logic. For most of human history, being excluded from your group was a survival threat. The brain that treated social rejection as physical danger was the brain that motivated you to repair the connection quickly. The problem is, we no longer live in that world. We live in a world where the professional conference moves on without acknowledging your comment, where the group chat falls silent, where the table at the restaurant gets a little smaller every year, and your brain, running the same ancestral software, responds exactly the way it always has. This is not all in your head. It's in your brain, your cells, your hormones. Now add something specific to this stage of life. After 50, particularly during perimenopause and beyond, estrogen levels decline. And estrogen, among its many functions, helps regulate how the brain processes social connection. It changes how the brain perceives connection, closeness, and social reward. It affects how rewarding social interaction feels, and how sharply the brain registers social absence. That doesn't mean the experience becomes permanent. It means neurological sensitivity to social signals increases at the exact moment social structures are most likely to shift. Retirement, children leaving home, career changes, friendships dispersing. The timing isn't random, it's biological. And here's the cost of treating this as simply an emotional issue to get over. Chronic social pain activates many of the same stress pathways involved in chronic physical pain. Cortisol rises, inflammatory markers increase. Research links persistent social disconnection to faster cognitive decline, disrupted sleep, and higher cardiovascular risk. This isn't about being overly sensitive. It's about a biological process that, without attention, carries measurable consequences. But here's what the same research also shows. The brain that is sensitive to social pain is also extraordinarily responsive to social repair. The same system that registers pain also registers healing with the same intensity, which means the path forward is not becoming less sensitive. It's understanding what the brain actually needs. And there's a third layer to this story, one most people never hear about, because it's not about the neuroscience of pain. It's about the neuroscience of meaning. Up to this point, I've explained what's happening. Now I want to change something, because understanding the mechanism is only half of what transforms the experience. The part that truly changes how you move through this is a matter of framing. And the framing most people use for invisibility after 50 is the wrong one. The framing is, something was taken from me. The attention that once came easily, professional recognition, automatic social inclusion, it was there. Now there's less of it. Loss, subtraction. That framing isn't completely wrong, but it places you in a position of waiting for the world to return something it no longer naturally offers. Here's the framing neuroscience actually supports. The brain's social pain system is not telling you that you matter less. It's telling you your sources of belonging need to change. There's a difference, and it's not subtle. Your brain's sense of belonging was calibrated to a specific life structure, career identity, a certain social circle, a familiar rhythm of being seen. That structure is changing, and the alarm sounding inside you is not a verdict. It's a signal that the belonging you were once drawing from is becoming less available, and the system is asking to be replenished from new sources. Susan, the woman I mentioned earlier, didn't find the answer by returning to her old professional world. She found it by building something new, small, intentional, surprisingly ordinary, where she was known again, where her name was spoken with recognition. Her brain stopped hurting because it stopped starving. The brain circuits involved in motivation, reward, and meaning are deeply intertwined with social recognition, not fame, not status, recognition. Being known consistently by people who matter. After 50, when professional recognition fades and social structures shift, dopamine signaling weakens. That's not a metaphor. It's a measurable neurochemical change. The answer is not mourning what used to be. It's actively, deliberately rebuilding the inputs. So what does this actually look like in practice? It's not a list of habits. It's not join a club. As if the brain can't distinguish genuine belonging from scheduled proximity. What the research points to is more specific. First, seek environments where you are known for your function, not your history. The brain's social recognition system responds to being seen for what you do now, not what you once did. A new skill class, a volunteer role, a creative project shared with others. The input has to exist in the present tense. Second, reduce ambient social comparison. Social media, especially passive scrolling, activates many of the same social pain circuits without offering any mechanism for repair. The brain registers exclusion even when you're not actually being excluded. Protect your inputs deliberately. Third, invest in asymmetrical relationships, the kind where you offer guidance, knowledge, or support to someone younger or less experienced. Research on generativity shows that mentoring, teaching, and being sought out for wisdom activate powerful signals of belonging. The brain interprets being needed as belonging. Fourth, and this one is deeply underestimated, talk to someone about what you're experiencing, not as a complaint, as information. I've noticed I'm more socially sensitive than I used to be. I'm learning why. The act of naming the experience accurately, with the biology behind it, removes the layer of shame. And shame, neurologically, amplifies social pain. Removing it is not weakness, it's strategy. And if the sensitivity feels intense, if it's affecting your sleep, your sense of identity, or your daily functioning, it's worth speaking with a healthcare professional. Hormonal and neurological factors can be evaluated. You do not have to interpret this alone. You came to this video with a feeling you may not have had words for, a kind of quiet discomfort that didn't fit neatly into any category you'd been given. What you know now is that this feeling was never irrational. It was neurological, real, measurable. And here's the part that changes things. Completely understandable. The brain that registers social absence as pain is not a brain that's failing. It's a brain responding exactly as it was designed to respond to a genuine shift in your social environment. And a brain capable of feeling pain is also capable of profound repair, the same circuits, the same sensitivity, in the opposite direction. And maybe the most surprising part is that belonging doesn't only affect emotions, it alters entire biological systems, from stress and inflammation to sleep and even the gut-brain axis. The whole body participates in the experience of connection. You now understand what your brain has been trying to communicate. There's another layer to all of this, one that helps explain why certain kinds of connection restore us more deeply than others. And it begins exactly where this conversation ends. You were never becoming invisible. Your brain was asking for new places to belong.